Okay, so last night I went to see Ant-Man, so I felt like I'm going to have to do a review of it because I actually really enjoyed it. I will try and avoid too many massive spoilers as I go through this, but just in case, here is the spoiler-free review. It's good, go watch it. There we go. That's the guaranteed spoiler-free review. So, the proper review, this is... yes, a very, very good film. It's actually up there in, I think, my top 3 Marvel films so far. Top being Winter Soldier, obviously, best written story so far, well acted, well played out. And Guardians, just because it brought the comic back into the comic movies. All the rest of them have been far too serious for far too long. Guardians just brought in that comic element that has been missing recently. But Ant-Man is up there. It's a personal favourite. It's not going to be for everyone, but it's got the right combination of effects, story, the characters are relatable, and all around it just played out really, really well. So, early on in the film, you get Scott Lang coming out of prison, and none of this is a spoiler because it's in the trailer, and then you get his story, his origin, where he's trying to redeem himself so that he could see his daughter, and then things go wrong, and then eventually, he acquires the Ant-Man costume. In fact, he steals it. Not really a spoiler, because pretty much that's in the trailer, and it's his origin. From there on, he gets to meet Hank Pym, then things happen, and then it starts diverging from the comic books a little bit. So there's a couple of areas where it diverges from the comics, and that's fine. This is one of the things I've come to get used to with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They diverge. The cinematic universe is different origins for different things. There's reasons for it. But one of the things that I really liked in this is that they didn't shy away from the fact that it's Ant-Man. They didn't try and make him into a punchy hero. All the other heroes, no matter how smart they are, always fall back on just pure brute strength. Look at the Avengers. They all end up punching things. Even Black Widow, who's supposed to be a master assassin, quite regularly just ends up punching things. It's ridiculous. Ant-Man was more of a clever film. They had a heist movie. And really, really nice touches, particularly falling back on the use of ants. So they had the ants in there. And they had different types of ants that had different tasks and different purposes. So they had crazy ants who can actually carry an electric charge, and these ants in the real world exist and can carry an electric charge, and they're used for various things. And then fire ants, there's a scene where they're on water and he's riding a raft of fire ants, which is something that fire ants do in nature. It's really, really well thought out, and I think it's definitely up there as far as films go. The only real problem I think people have with it is that it's the Scott Lang Ant-Man rather than the Hank Pym Ant-Man. And to a degree, I can kind of understand where they're coming from, because there's a lot more stories for Hank Pym than there is for Scott Lang, because Hank Pym was Ant-Man for a lot longer. However, again, this is the cinematic universe, not the comic universe. There is nothing to say that a lot of the stories for Hank Pym can't be transferred over to Scott Lang further down the line if they need it. There is, in my opinion, a much more important reason for why it was Scott Lang and not Hank Pym. And this is more real world than comic world. The reason I personally think they went with the Scott Lang Ant-Man is because, without being glaringly obvious with it, in this movie, they have got people used to the idea of superhero titles changing hands. We are dealing here with the second Ant-Man. In the film, there is references to another character that is going to pass on its mantle to somebody else being that character. This is preparing the cinema-going universe, that's not the comic universe, to the idea that the heroes aren't specifically locked to the person, but the title can change hands. Because Chris Hemsworth, Robert Downey Jr., all of this lot have only got a couple of films left in their contract. At the end of that, Disney and Marvel are either going to have to pay through their nose to get these people back on, or pass the titles on to somebody else. If they can get away with working that into a earlier film, the concept that this can happen, it will prepare the movie-going viewer reviewers for this idea. That's my opinion on why they went with Scott Lang rather than Hank Pym. It's subtle. They don't make a song and dance of it, but it's there, at least from what I saw. Got to say, the fights between Yellow Jacket and Ant-Man were actually really good. The shifting between sizes and the whole character of Yellow Jacket was really, really good. Even though, again, they've changed the person who is in the Yellow Jacket. This is not a handing over of the title because it's not been there before, but making somebody else the Yellow Jacket makes sense in the cinematic universe. And I kind of like, from the comic fans, that it's Darren Cross, who was Scott Lang's first enemy, that becomes Scott Lang's first enemy, but as Yellow Jacket. Another character that played well was Evangelina Lilly's character, Hope Van Dyne. She was interesting, a little bit odd towards the end. Some things happened a bit too fast with very little context, but it was all worthwhile. Overall, I don't know what else to say. Basically, go see that film because it's up there in the top. Personally, I'm going to put it at number 3 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. I think it's going to be in at least the top 5 or top 10 for most people who are into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And with that, I'm going to stop gibbering because I'm on my second can of Red Bull today, so I'm a bit wee. If I don't cut that out, that'll be ridiculous. Go watch it. Let me know what you think. If you watch it, if you have seen it, and you want to do the whole YouTube thing of comments, then yeah, comments. I'll argue with you in the comments.